Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Stand for the singing of O Canada. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command, with flowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Okay, record of attendance. Absent with regrets. Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded to excuse Councillor Dennis. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Good. Approval of agenda, additions or deletions. So we have 12A for an addition, which is an amendment to the Streets and Sidewalks bylaw. 12B, I'll do a dispatch update. And Deputy, you had something?
Thank you, Your Worship. A question to the Water Utility Chair about the Lake George Watershed Advisory Committee, which was held over the last, within the last week.
Okay, so I'll put that under 12C, Water Utility. Anybody, anything else? Thank you. Councillor Cleveland, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an addition of a request for a crosswalk on Parade Street at where the armories are located.
So I'll put 12D crosswalk.
Okay?
Anybody else? Anything? Go ahead, CAO.
Your Worship, I anticipate a follow-up to the dog park item in camera, so put a further discussion around negotiation in camera.
I'll just put that under B, dog park, under the in camera. Good. Okay, a motion to approve the agenda with the additions, please. Moved by Councillor Barry, second Councillor Cleveland. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Approval of minutes, Town Council, July 12th, 2018. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. And Committee of the Whole, July 25th, please.
Second, Your Worship.
Councillor Barry, Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Business arising. We have the Yarmouth Dog Park Association with regard to the status. They have asked for a bit of an update. CAO, do you have something for us? Go ahead.
I do, Your Worship. Our engineer, Charles Hartland, has met with the president of the Dog Park Association on a couple of occasions over the last couple of weeks. And there have been some, I would say, fairly positive developments that depend on, I guess, a little bit of a change of course. I'd like to discuss those with the engineer and yourselves in camera and receive direction, brief you on some of the changes, possible changes, get some direction from you, and move forward accordingly.
Okay, good.
No, I've asked for that to be on the agenda in camera. You know, as you can tell from if I might,
certainly.
You can tell from Martha's, the chairperson's letter, that there's a degree of anxiousness, a little bit of frustration, and they'd like to see the project move forward. And so Charles did meet with her, as I say, a couple of times. I think there's more optimism and hope as a result of those meetings and exchange of ideas. And so, you know, hopefully when we talk later this evening, you'll feel the same way.
Okay, good. So then once we do this and you get some direction, then we go right back to them. I think they're having a bit of a meeting on the 14th. I think I saw Martha Cassidy had mentioned that, so we can get some information to them. That's great. Thanks for that update. Okay, new business, sewer flushing, cleaning, video inspection. Nothing like a sewer inspection, video, CAO.
It's not as bad as it sounds.
Oh, it's not as bad as it sounds. Well, that's good news.
Okay, so, Your Worship, invited tenders were requested from 4 firms for sewer flushing, vacuum cleaning, and video inspection for the 2018 season. Responses were received from 3 firms with results as summarized in the memo from the Manager of Public Works. After reviewing the tenders, it is recommended that the contract be awarded to the lowest overall tenderer, Clean Earth Industrial Services, Inc. That's for your information and approval. And just so you understand how we do this, we do budget a fixed amount each year, and so we do the amount of this work that the budget permits based on the pricing. And so it is a fixed cost item. What varies is how much we can do based on price.
Okay,
I'll second.
seconded. Okay, did you want to share anything else on that, or you?
It's kind of neat watching it actually work. A couple of years ago, I watched a miniature version of you might see a vehicle walking on the moon go through a sewer pipe.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat.
Question, Your Worship.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. It's nice to see those 2 initials. First time I've seen those initials, CH, on one of these. Good stuff, Mr. Engineer. Okay. Request for presentation, YASTA, with regard to Tourism Destination Management Plan. So that was for our committee of the whole. I was just wondering, have all the units ever come together to do this, or we just do it separately?
He's planning to do them individually.
Okay. Yeah, all right. So we're looking,
I'll make a motion for
Okay.
available opportunity, Your Worship,
Okay.
for the to make a presentation.
perfect. Second, Councillor Barry. Any further discussion?
Question?
Questions? Because we don't have it anymore. We don't have them anymore. It's just they don't have them anymore. And it's, is it bigger than?
Yes.
It's bigger than our 3 councils. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I was wondering, if we came together, but if he wants to do them individually, that's good. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Oh, sorry, you wanna? Go ahead.
So the question Councillor McLeod raised was, is it bigger meaning, are there more municipal units other than the 3 in Yarmouth
Yes.
County? Is Clare back in, or are they still out?
They are not.
No.
Is there any hope of getting them back in? Time's passing, you know?
Yeah.
Do you know if any outreach has been made in that regard?
Yes.
Can I address that?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Dan.
As part of this actual presentation that's done, one of the recommendations was to make moves towards getting Clare in.
Yeah.
But it has to be done on a government level. It has to be done between councillors. And
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of testing the waters to see if the interest exists. But
And
we
we-
would love to have.
Yeah, we've chatted with them unofficially.
Yeah.
They're great partners.
They really are.
Yeah.
And it would be valuable to have them as part of YESTA, but they're doing quite well on their own. And so it's just a matter of seeing if they wish to be a part of this. According to the government, the government declaration, Yarmouth and Acadian Shores includes Clare as far as area goes. And so it's a shame that they're missing out on what YESTA is doing right now.
It's a personal aside, but my own thoughts have always been very positive towards people in Clare as being part of this region. They really do share a lot of things with us.
Oh,
A
absolutely.
huge number of their people work in our institutions here in town. And whatever events took place that caused them to see fit to leave, hopefully time has allowed some healing to go on there, and it would be great if we could get them back in.
Very much so.
Thank you. Okay, we called for the question, but all those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Shark Scramble request.
Worship.
Go ahead there, Deputy.
Make a motion that we grant $500 to the Yarmouth Shark Scramble, and I think Councillor Hood's going to second that with a little comment.
Go ahead, Councillor Hood.
Your worship, yes, I'm seconding the motion because the event has been running now 20-odd years, and it is with a gap, and I think it needs to be supported. However, in seconding the motion, the Scramble will note that the amount approved, $500, is less than the request and less than the amount that we have contributed in the past. And it's that way because we do have a process, we have deadlines, and many other organizations in the community have applied within the deadlines and so on. But when we did approve our grants, we left some leeway for what we call last minute or emergency events that give rise to that. And although this one is less of an emergency, it's certainly one of those events that this time alone, I think we should continue to support the event, and but at the same time request that they cross their T's and dot their I's the same as the other organizations that deal with us.
Your worship,
Yeah.
the deadline date there?
Yeah, the deputy just passed me this. Deadline for receipt of requests for the 2018-19 fiscal year ending March 31st, 2019 is 4 p.m. Friday, December 15th. 2018, that should read. So to your point, Linda. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, and a letter just to help them. Oh, it is? Okay. Oh, all right.
We need to give them next year's deadline.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So 500. Go ahead there, Councillor McLeod.
Are the other municipal units contributing? I have no idea if they are or not.
Yeah, so that's,
I know we don't, may
yeah,
not know
that's
that.
one of the questions that we ask on our form, so that we know that they've solicited funds from the other units, as well as the province, federal government, other organizations. So it's a good question, which is why we do the application process. Very good question. Councillor Hood, your light's blinking, but I have a funny feeling you don't need it, okay?
Question, your worship.
CAO?
Your worship, I have an item I'd like to discuss with council in camera related to this application.
Okay. Is that before we vote? Okay. Okay, so how do we do that? Okay, all right, good. So I am going to put that on, huh?
Oh, you want to deal with that?
Yeah, we can do that at the end. That's good. Okay? Okay, so D, the fence behind the food bank. And I put for discussion, but basically, I would be looking for someone who might make the motion that staff be directed to look into the feasibility and cost of providing a fence behind the food bank. I think we all know why. I think it's something we should do, and staff can look at that, how that would work. Councillor Cleveland?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I've been talking about this for a little while. I do believe it is the right thing to do, so I would like to make that motion to get staff to look at the feasibility of putting a fence behind the food bank.
Yeah. Okay, moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so I was just going to provide a splash park update. Have you all heard? If you're on social media, you've probably seen, and actually I think, Tina, did you cover some of that in a story as well? So, so basically a couple weeks ago, and it happened very quickly, a group came together to discuss the possibility of a splash park in the Yarmouth area and if there was support for same. The community support appeared to be overwhelming, and a meeting was called by local citizens to see what the next steps would be. I attended the meeting on behalf of the town, as we are, of course, interested in this type of project, and Frank Rank also attended from Yarmouth Recreation. So at the meeting, the next steps that were discussed, they're preliminary things, which would include the interested group setting up an official committee, forming a society through which basically it would become a legal entity, which I'm sure our solicitor would agree with. Funding, that's how they would put through funding applications, all those pieces. So they would form a society. That said society would register through joint stocks, or it'd be things that they would do as a committee and society, such as, you know, work through the site selection process, what would the park look like, of course, working with the appropriate people and much more. So basically all the fun stuff to get set up. The group has indicated that the public will be kept up to date via the official Facebook page. It's called Yarmouth Splash Park Committees, and I'm sure that anything they do, it will be covered by the media as well, and the public will be engaged on various steps throughout the project. So they're not just going to do it, they're going to engage the public, of course, because it's a public project. I just think we all agree that this would be a great addition to this entire region in Nova Scotia. The closest splash parks now that we're aware of are in Shelburne on the south shore, Berwick on the north shore. Yarmouth County alone, correct me if I'm wrong, CAO, but we service in Yarmouth County 29,000, about that, okay? 27 to 29,000 people. And when we extend to Shelburne and Digby counties, that number comes closer to 58 to 60,000 people. So it's a really large catchment area, and what a great feature for this entire region. So I did, just because I was chatting with them anyway, I spoke with our MP Colin Fraser and our MLA Zach Churchill, who are both willing to work with the group as time goes on and they get closer to the funding arrangements and trying to find the funds to put that together. And they did say, of course, that there would be a 1/3 local portion to that. So that's not the town, that's just the local portion, wherever that may come from. We haven't decided that. That group hasn't decided that. So in a nutshell, the meeting was extremely positive, and we're just waiting for the next meeting to hear further updates and as they move forward. But it was really exciting and cool how that came to be in a really fast manner. Councillor Hood?
How much water does a splash park use?
Not sure, but there was a little bit of talk about the splash parks that recycle that water, and how I think they cost a little bit more money, but when you do that, there's more environmental funding. So there's more opportunities because you're doing it the right way. So. Okay.
Just past the lights, you see that big building down in there, back of the shopping center?
5 or 6 in the city.
I mean,
think they're putting up number
but
6 in
it's
Dartmouth.
indoors, right?
Yeah.
It's indoors.
Wow.
And my thoughts on this when I saw it was, in Yarmouth, a splash park, we don't get 6 or 8 or 10 days a year when it's fit to go out and splash ordinary cold water on you.
Well, I have to preempt that.
We've got a few nights going here now, but seriously, anyway.
I gotta say, I grew up in the south end, what we all call a south end splash park, and I don't care if it was 2 degrees, we were in that water.
Well, you had it, yes.
The kids can do it.
No, the kids can do it. God, we used to play in this one when I was a kid.
We did too.
Yeah, over there, yeah.
Yeah. Mom would walk all 6 kids up through town, and we'd go down to the fountain, and we were allowed to put our feet in, as long as we behaved. None of us ever put bubbles in it.
No.
No, seriously, I won't say any more, but the one in Spryfield, if any of you get a chance to go have a look at it, because it's enclosed and it's a year-round facility.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that is the final, the top level thing. It's got a water slides and all that stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Your worship, I'll make a motion that we present the Splash Park project to the next mayors and wardens meeting. That'll be held this month.
Okay. So moved. Seconded by Councillor Cleveland. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, Main Street closure in September. I didn't put anything on this. I had a gentleman approach me. They're actually having a meeting this evening at the high school. So that starts at 8 o'clock. Steve Barry it was. I'll tell you, Mr. Barry, it was Steve. And with regard to doing a ground hockey tournament the last weekend in September on Main Street. And I know we did the play-on one, which was awesome. I know that when we close down the streets, it's excellent for the businesses. It brings people downtown. It does all those things that we're trying to create. I'm not sure if they're going with Friday night, Saturday, or with Saturday, Sunday. I don't have anything until they have that meeting. But I did say that I would ask council if we could approve that time so that they can move forward, because we won't. Okay, so that's all they have to do? All right. So it's not up to council? No, this is, I just didn't want to skip a step because
No, so
time is of the
generally,
essence.
generally speaking, over the last number of years, the council's been supportive of closing Main Street for festivals, and we all know that we've had great success and great feedback from the business community, and so the real issue is that they do it in a safe way, and meaning that they block streets properly. And so the process is that they make an application through the traffic authority, and provide it doesn't create any conflict with something else going on where Main Street, for instance, would have to be open, then there's not much difficulty. As long as they do it right and give the traffic authority time to consider the application, shouldn't be a problem.
Excellent.
Yep. And so, in terms of communication, if they make the application, we'll keep you aware. If there are any things that come up that you should be aware of that cause any concerns, we generally accept that council is supportive of this sort of initiative.
Perfect. Well, that's great news. Okay, good. That last weekend of September. And actually, we used to do Switch on that weekend as well. We've done Switch before, but we're not doing it that week. So Charles, I'll have him contact you, and you guys can go from there. Good news. Perfect. Okay, reports. Council advisory committees. Deputy?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the town clerk be authorized to sign the destruction of documents resolution, and maybe the CAO can explain the time period that these documents have been around and what the process is.
Yep. Thank you, Councilor Barry.
Yeah, Your Worship, there have been, these are general, just routine documents that are generated through administration. They are all older than 7 years old, some older than that. We do periodically, every couple of years, bring a list forward to council as is required for your approval to destroy the documents before we do. So, in terms of financial records, these are just documents that are generated in the process. These statements have already been audited years ago. There's nothing here that has there's any value to in terms of lost information or anything like that once they're destroyed.
Okay. Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Your Worship, I move that the staff recommendation to make no changes to the solid waste bylaw be accepted.
Moved and seconded. CAO first.
Okay, so by making no changes, then we'll proceed to advertise for second reading at the September council meeting. That's the implication of that. It isn't that the bylaw is approved, right? It's that we're going to proceed to do the second reading at the next council meeting.
So if somebody has a question or concern, they can come in and,
Well, it's not a hearing. You've had the hearing.
okay.
This is they can come and ask to speak to council, and then it's up to
Yeah,
you.
okay.
But we'll be advertising second reading, not another public hearing on it, because nothing has changed in the bylaw since the last public hearing. Do you understand?
I got it.
Councillor Hood?
Your worship, I'm going to be supporting this, but I want to say something about it before I do. And that's, I think several of us at least have visited one of the sites on Elm Street. And I have a lot of sympathy for trying to find a solution for individual circumstances where the history is probably one of compliance with what we would expect to be neat and orderly property maintenance. But having done that, I took my car and went for a drive. We got a long way to go on enforcing our existing bylaw before we go about changing this bylaw. And I hate to throw the baby out with the wash water, but in effect, I think we have to do this because I found many different violations of the bylaw in regards to the storage of green carts, which is the main issue, and garbage receptacles around the town. And some of them are in locations in the town that aren't as frequently visited as you might do. I know from, be careful. I drove on some streets I have never driven on before to really try to see how people manage. And some of them, it's difficult for some of them, but we have streets in town that are on small lots and so on and so forth. So anyway, there are clear-cut violations of the existing bylaw, and they have been, from what I saw, of long standing. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will be voting to proceed with this.
Okay, do you want to turn your light off? And who's next here? Councillor Cleveland.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I won't be supporting this motion. I still believe that it needs to be looked at. I went to the same spot that I believe everybody did, and I've had numerous conversations with others. And I just want to say, yes, and you're absolutely right, Councillor Hood, there are plenty of violations out there, which I believe absolutely should be enforced. But you spoke of kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I worry about, at times, about legislating for the lowest common denominator as opposed to those who are doing it right. Why punish the ones who are doing it right instead of just trying to nullify everything? And so for me, I still believe that we need to look at this further before we go any further with it, and I still believe it needs adjustment, so I won't be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McLeod.
I also visited, like several of you did, a friend of ours on Elm Street, and they have a wonderful situation up there, and it certainly makes it easier for the garbage pickup to make one stop as opposed to 6 stops, if that's what it turns out to be. And I wavered. I'm not going to waver again. I'm going to support the motion. And I just wish, and I think of what Councillor Wade is saying, you know, we have 1 or 2 people who set a wonderful example of proper storage of the green carts. And then, as Councillor Cliff has said, there's a number who don't care as much. I'm still going to support the bylaw.
Councillor Berry.
I second it to bring it to the table, but I too have visited several places throughout the town. I saw some that were outstanding, and this bylaw, the way it exists, would end up hurting that group that's making our town shine when it comes to those kind of things. So unless there's some other changes that are made to this bylaw, I won't be supporting it at all.
Okay. Anyone else? Me too. Go ahead.
Your Worship, we all know, Mr. Daly came forward at the public hearing at one of the meetings and spoke. ask council to reconsider this, and I know many of you have visited his property and others that, where I think we all agree he's doing it right. He's doing it nicely. And we wouldn't need a bylaw at all if we could count on people taking the kind of care and pride in their properties, even their rental properties where they don't live themselves, as Mr. Daly does. We wouldn't need nearly as many bylaws. Unfortunately, I think we probably consider him an exceptional landlord. And we do have a lot of rental properties in the town. More than half of our residents are in rental properties, and we have, in some cases, landlords, in other cases, homeowners who don't adhere to the same standards as Mr. Daly. And so we would like to have a bylaw that had as few provisions in it as possible. Let me give you an example of how our town does a good job without having to have a bylaw. If you read our current solid waste bylaw, our current solid waste bylaw is so out of date that it doesn't even address the clear bag and the 2 blue bag system. And yet our people lead the province in terms of adherence and waste diversion. So you can achieve success without a hammer, simply by giving guidance and in that case, good education, right? For people to do that without the bylaw. They're not reading the bylaw to figure that out. It's not in there. So, in this case, we would hope that we could, have streetscapes that people can feel proud about. If you drive around town, as we had our bylaw enforcement officer do, and identify every single situation where there was a violation of that particular provision, there were lots of them, lots and lots of them. And many of them that I saw actually made the change, moved their waste storage in the backyard as a result of his visit. Some didn't. And so there's an indicator right there that there are some that are still not very nice, and they're still in the front yard, even though they've received a warning notice from the bylaw enforcement officer. So if we allowed them in the front yard, there will be those who won't listen to the friendly nudge that he would give, as he does on dangerous and unsightly. He gives a lot of people a friendly nudge, and they fix situations. They look at every day and just don't think about. Some people will react to that very quickly, and other people you have to get into issuing an offense ticket or a more confrontational situation. The hope would be is that having the bylaw, we'd never have to write a ticket, but in reality, we know that we'll probably have to go and remove some of these at some point at the homeowner's expense. I wish we didn't have to. I guess one way of looking at it is you can take that provision out and hope that people don't start storing all their garbage in the front yard. But I think once it's gone, I think you'll see more of it, and I don't think it will all look as good as we would hope it would.
Pam?
So, sorry, I'm going to.
I guess as a follow-up rebuttal, I guess, would be the question is, we give warning, and I know how Yarmouth has always been a friendly component to all of the citizens. I think we need to step it up one more time and say, here's a ticket. You know what I mean? And fight that battle, or take on that challenge. I don't know how many tickets have been issued, but I'm saying if we've given warnings and we haven't followed up with a ticket, well, you can warn me 10 times. And if you're going to warn me 10 times, I'm going to take advantage of you 10 times. I think we need to follow up with the final step of warning, so much of a time, ticket, and then see where we stand on a court battle or whatever it is.
Your Worship, just so that we're clear, what occurred here, and I mentioned this at an earlier meeting, is this provision in the bylaw was not being enforced, and so that's why there were a number of situations that have been in place for quite a while. When I was revising the bylaw so the sortation was as we have it, as we want it to be, adopting our bylaw to the waste check model bylaw format, I discovered that, or rediscovered, I guess, that provision about backyard storage, talked to our bylaw enforcement officer and said, because I knew immediately there were violators. I said, get around, identify every violation, tell them that it's a violation, and tell them that we're in the process of reviewing this bylaw, because what we don't want to do is go out after we've approved the new bylaw, enforce an old provision, have council not support it, have the citizens in an uproar, when we could have dealt with it all at one time. So the fact we're having this discussion now is intentional. The fact we didn't go past a warning yet is intentional, because we frankly have been in a discussion about whether to keep this in or not. So we didn't think that we should run out and issue a ticket and have council then change the bylaw. So we're really wanting to take the temperature, trying to massage this or fix it in a way that we're all, as much as possible, comfortable with. But once we get the bylaw completed, if that provision is still in there, then there'll be repeat visits to all the addresses he had on his list, and take it a step further.
Okay, so I support it as is, 150%. I agree with Councillor Cleveland. One of the most difficult things we do at this table is sit here and make decisions that we know appear to penalize the folks that are doing it right. And it's just like any other rule or any other law that's written in the world, right? It's to ensure the safety of the general public. So the point that I don't feel like we're discussing this evening is, I 1,000%, I visited that site as well. That's one or two sites in the entire town of Yarmouth that's doing it correct. And I understand that, and I saw it, and I'm going to say, like, my heart pounded for them because they're doing it right, and it doesn't look bad. However, what I explained was that if we allow one or two to do it, then everybody can do it. And when you're driving down some of these streets, what we end up a couple years from now, because it's so easy, is these garbage, and that's what they are. They are garbage bins made out of wood or whatever product. They are garbage bins on the front lawns in a beautiful, manicured, historic seaport town. They don't belong there. This is just my opinion. They don't belong there. They don't fit there. And if you think, and Councillor Hood was absolutely bang on, we don't manage to police what's out there now. Imagine if we say, yes, you know what? Some people are doing it right, so let's let everybody, and then start writing tickets. I think we're going to have to hire 3 more people just to police, and we've seen it. And so the phone calls I'm getting from citizens is that please don't let this happen, because I don't want my beautiful street to be laden with garbage disposal units. They look good, but everybody doesn't take care of them, no matter if they say they're going to or not. We've got very few people who are looking after this. The other thing, I noticed a couple people when I spoke to the media about it, the comment was, well, doesn't she know that the animals will get into it if they don't let us do this? It doesn't matter if it's on the front lawn or the side yard. If you have it covered in a manner that's consistent with not letting animals in, the animals are not going to get in. So it doesn't matter where it is. The animals are not going to get in if you, for example, I know some people put a rock on top of their green bin or something like that. The bottom line is, I wish we had policed it right off the bat, because they were put there illegally in the first place, which is sad, because some of them are illegal, but they look nice. And again, I don't think there's anybody at this table that doesn't have a tremendous respect for those that are doing it correctly. They're wrapping their garbage, they're making sure that you can't see the garbage bags and the green bins and all those pieces. But for me, it's about the entire town. And we've also seen that some people think the proper thing to do is to put what I call those, they look like wire cages, and they've got garbage in them from the day after it gets picked up till the following 2 weeks. So that's just my thought on it. It's a dangerous, dangerous road to go. And sadly, it will mean that some people might have to, you know, move theirs back a few feet because it is town and folks are not a long ways off from the road. And I think I said in the committee of the whole, you know, we've been getting garbage to the curb for a long time. I think we can continue to do that and still maintain what we're trying to create in this town, which is that really nice, clean feel where nobody's calling us and saying, can you please get my neighbor to remove their green cart and their garbage? That's just my opinion on it. So I'm going to vote for this, and we'll see where we go when we get to second reading. Okay? So, looking if
Question, Your Worship.
question's been called, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary? Nay. Terms of reference, two nays. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Your Worship, I'll make a motion that the terms of reference for the Accessibility Committee be accepted.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Your Worship, I move that Charles Hartland be appointed Town Engineer and Traffic Authority for the Town of Yarmouth effective August the 7th, 2018.
Moved and seconded.
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? That was unanimous, Charles.
Yeah.
Welcome, officially.
Your Worship, I move that matter of looking into the public service superannuation plan be referred back to the Pension Committee for further investigation.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion
Your
carried.
Worship, I move that the correspondence from Colin Fraser regarding the Canada Summer Jobs application process be received and placed on file with correspondence sent to Colin Fraser, thanking him for his response.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried.
Your Worship, I move that Max Stolberger be appointed acting EMC for a 3-month renewable term until remote transition is complete, and that Janine Dowsett be appointed as remote transition facilitator.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Go ahead there, Councillor Hood.
This isn't our appointment alone, is it? Should the motion not reflect that? It sounds as if we're making the appointment all by ourselves.
Yeah.
So mover and seconder can do, CAO suggests we could just modify that a little bit to make it reflect that. That's all I have to go.
Okay, I move that maybe Max Stolberger be appointed in consultation with the municipality of Yarmouth as acting EMO for a 3-month renewable term until remote transition is complete, and that Janine Dowsett be appointed as remote transition facilitator.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
Reports for information. Any questions for committee chairs, anyone? Apparently, we'll do that at, apparently I'm going to Alberta. Okay, so where are we on that? We're still things, Communities in Bloom, straight ahead?
We're going straight ahead, yes.
Wonderful.
Very excited to be heading to Strathcona, which is where this year's National Convention of Communities in Bloom is. We have to host, as the host for next year, we host a showcase dinner, which happens on the Friday, which is being put together now. And we're all going to be there. It will be on the Friday, I believe it's 29th of September, 30th, something like that. Yeah, things are going very well. We're also very excited about the prospects of next year. We were greeted with an enormous amount of enthusiasm from the 2 Communities in Bloom judges who were here this past month. And that was very exciting. We were basically told by them that we were ready, that the town looks wonderful, and that they were very impressed, which is kind of exciting. Of course, the presentation of those awards, every year, Communities in Bloom judges come, and we're entered into whatever category we may be in. And we're fairly excited because the enthusiasm of the judges leads us to believe that we're probably going to do fairly well there, and so we'll be there to hopefully collect an award as well. So yes, everything's going well.
They were really excited about
They really
the
were.
town.
They loved the town, and it was
Wonderful.
great to see.
Yeah.
Maybe, Your Worship, to Councillor Cleveland, one of the ladies, one of the judges worked for the Capital Commission in Ottawa, and the other one was a marketing consultant. Yes, because you just maybe go over a little bit of the debrief, what happened on the morning of the debrief, and what their thoughts were.
Well, on the morning of the debrief, they were very excited. Again, as mentioned, they were excited about many things. The lady, Susan Ellis, who is the marketing lady, was extremely excited about the town generally, and talked very much not just about the look of the town, but the hospitality of the people, which is an enormous part of Communities in Bloom. It isn't, you think of Communities in Bloom and you think flowers, but it's much more than that. It is about flowers as far as it goes. It's about trees, but it's about an awareness of your heritage. It's about community enthusiasm, about keeping everything clean. It's about environmental issues. And what we were told by both judges is that we're pretty much doing everything right. Susan had been here 6 years before, which is always more helpful, to be honest, because what happens is, and you know this for a fact, Your Worship, what happens is they've seen the town probably at its worst, and they come back and see it as it is now, and it's grown so much in the past 6 years that it's a matter of personal pride, I think for all of us anyway, but she was extremely enthusiastic. We actually, as the presentation goes, what happens is they come on the Thursday. On the Friday, they went on a walking tour, and they went on a driving tour. Well, the walking tour, everything's very strictly timed and scheduled. You're supposed to be here at this time, there at that time. And we were having trouble keeping it on par because wherever we went, they wanted to go in and buy things and talk. They were very, very enthusiastic. And the other lady, Tina Liu, she works for Ottawa. As you mentioned, she works as an advisor and as a person who develops landscapes. She was extremely excited about the town, and a brilliant lady. She helped design the tulips for Canada 150. And if you ask her any questions, she would certainly keep you enthralled. Actually, stuff was very, very interesting. She could talk for a long amount of time about the development of it and how it was done. And so they were two very qualified people who were very impressed with the town. And I have to be honest with you, it felt really good. It was a really good experience.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Plus, one of the things when she talked to Todd is we're doing something here in the town of Yarmouth that she'd like to see the Capital Commission do, and she's bringing it back to Ottawa.
Yeah.
So, and I know Todd was a great asset there, and I know they had a great chat. But one of the things that we do here in the town of Yarmouth is she's going to bring back and see if they can put it in place and do the same thing for the Capital Commission.
That's excellent. And she, because they were 40 or 45 minutes late for my appointment too, but I was so excited that they were out shopping and enjoying the town that, yeah.
And as attended what the Deputy Mayor said, what it is that Todd does is he keeps an inventory of all of our trees. We have an inventory of the heritage trees, how old they are, if anything needs to be replaced. And yeah, they were both very, very excited about that. And the fact that we're this far ahead, that we're actually ahead of many other communities. So, and they had hugely complimentary things to say, not just about the town, but about Todd and his crew, who do such a wonderful job, and they have to be mentioned because they do. I think sometimes things look so good as far as our green spaces go that we forget to give the credit where the credit is due, and it certainly is there. No question about it.
Completely agree. Go ahead, Councillor Hood.
Speak about the inventory of trees. That started with Councillor Stockman.
Oh, wow.
He was the guy that, of course, he was a forester, and he started that program when he was a councillor. And people like Jim Stockman, who served us many times, many years ago, who've sort of set the groundwork for a lot of these things we have.
Yeah. I remember the first couple of years, the judges arrived. They wanted to, I call them Dave and Dave Solos and Dave. They want me to speak to the all hands on deck because they couldn't believe that a community could come together like that. And this time they asked about the 100 meals, and they were blown away that a community this size could do 100 meals every single day for 100 days, and that it wasn't us, it was the community coming together to do that. And like you said, people think Communities in Bloom is about flowers, and it is, but it's also about bringing community together. So it was really cool. Any more questions for committee chairs? Anyone? Okay, so the additions. Amendments to the streets and sidewalk bylaw. Oh, I see it now. Just seeing it, so you're going to speak to that.
Your Worship, the bylaw is there, but what we're really looking for tonight is direction. I want to tell you about a situation and seek your direction. If you agree, we'll proceed to prepare amendments for consideration at next month's council meeting. So the situation is with regard to sections 49 and 50 of the bylaw, which deal with driveway access. So the situation is that the bylaw provides that when you gain access to a public street, the property owner has to construct and maintain at the expense of the property owner and in conformance with the requirements as determined by the engineer. So that's the driveway. And in section 50, when a driveway access crosses an existing drainage ditch, the property owner shall install and maintain a culvert at the owner's expense and in conformance, so on, with the engineer's requirements. Where the issue is that we'd like to consider making a couple of amendments is, first of all, the ditch itself. In these open ditch situations, the ditch is not addressed at all, and we'd like to provide some provision in there that the homeowner has some responsibility to keep the ditch free of, let's say, grass clippings and fill and other things, toys, whatnot, that make their way into ditches that sometimes block culverts and cause flooding. We would also like to remove the part about maintain. So we want them to install their own culvert according to the engineer's specifications, but we'd like to take over the maintenance and the reason of the culverts themselves. The reasons for that is that a half a dozen or so times a year, our staff find situations where they would like to replace a culvert because it isn't performing, it's aged, maybe it's collapsed partially, and it isn't performing the way that is optimal for managing stormwater and perhaps causing some flooding. The issue is that because the maintenance is the responsibility of the property owner, our staff have to go knock on the door and say, we're doing some stormwater work, and by the way, you've got a $1,000 problem on your hands. And that never goes especially well, and so the work doesn't get done on the schedule that we would like to. To us as a town, in terms of maintaining the stormwater system, a few $1,000s a year is not a huge deal. And it's actually our maintenance staff who've requested that we take over that responsibility so that we can get the work done on a schedule that suits our need, that doesn't create a hardship for the property owner. And if it's at no fault of their own that the culvert over time has degraded, or that our requirements for stormwater have increased, so we want to increase the size of the culvert, then we should take on that cost at that time. So that's the recommendation. Now, if there is a case of willful or neglect or negligence on part of the property owner that causes a culvert to fail, we would expect the property owner to pick that up, not the town. So we'd like to draft a couple of amendments to the bylaw that would support us taking over the culvert maintenance, where it's just purely aging or our requirements, not put that on the homeowner. Put something in here so they have to maintain the ditches to a certain degree, And also just make the exception that if it's at the homeowners, if the homeowner causes the culvert to fail, then they have responsibility for the maintenance at that point. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer, and Charles is here as well. If you're in agreement, a motion to have us draft those amendments to bring back for your consideration would be appropriate.
Go ahead, Councillor Cleveland.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I have no problem with that. It makes perfect sense to me. The only question I have, and as far as everything goes, it's fine. Rewrite it the way you wish because it makes perfect sense. My problem, or my question, I guess, is more accurate. It's not really a problem. Section 49 more talks about driveways within a street, constructed, and you've crossed out and maintained. Well, a driveway would be maintained at the expense of a property owner, wouldn't it? As opposed to the culvert itself. So really the changes are more for section 50 than they are for 49. Okay, just for clarity. Thank you.
Councillor Hood?
In 49, it says every driveway within a street. So they're only talking about the portion of the driveway which is from the property line onward to the pavement, I assume.
Yes. That
That's
help
what
you?
it,
Wait.
that's what that says.
Yeah.
And then in 50, it says where a driveway access crosses. Why use the word access? Shouldn't, where a driveway crosses an existing drainage ditch? Do you not think the access word is surplusage there? Redundant or something? Yeah. All right, so I'm good.
Anyone else? Councillor McLeod?
I support Jeff's recommendations. What caught my eye was the item 52, the penalty, and 53. Is that going to be revisited, or am I going to go to jail for 6 months? It's possible. Okay. Thank you, Cliff.
Only Councillor McLeod would get time for good behavior. Good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so I love this. I think it's like a lot of our bylaws, just a couple words here and there that make all the difference. It's positive. So we're looking for a motion. What's the motion, CAO? Okay, so it's for staff to draft the amendments. Okay, second by Councillor Barry. Good? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. What? Oh, thank you. Thought you had your light on. Okay. So I had the dispatch update because that's a topic that everyone's thinking of. The town did do a media release, so I'll just read that. Negotiations between municipalities representing the users of the Yarmouth Dispatch Service and the town of Yarmouth, who operate the service, have ended without an agreement. The town was recently notified that there were insufficient municipal users remaining to negotiate an effective cost-sharing agreement. However, the town has not been notified by any volunteer fire department that they are discontinuing to use our dispatch service. We haven't received any notification from anyone yet. So basically, the two sides differed on key principles. The municipalities representing the users of the service maintained that the service should be available to them at a cost competitive with other services in the province. So basically not wanting to pay more than the market rate, which, and I'll say that's fair. They felt they were limited in how much they would pay, partially based on the cost of purchasing, again, the same service elsewhere. So I know sometimes it gets wordy, but if you can get a service for a small amount of money, what they're saying is, you know, how do you explain paying more? So the town did receive a proposal from the municipalities that was less than 3 times, I think it was 2.7 times the current rate from the other municipalities, which left the town taxpayers to pay 10 times the current rate. The town's response to the proposal was very simple. that any formula for sharing of costs would have to include the town and would be equitable to all users of the service, including the town. The town is willing to overpay for this service relative to other alternatives, as long as the other users of the service are also willing to overpay proportionally. So I'm going to explain this in terms that I've explained it to some others, understanding that this is a much more important issue than what I'm going to throw out there. But for example, if all of us, if 7 council members want internet, and I'm the only one that can provide internet, and it's $70 a month, and we each pay $10, that's fair. But if all of a sudden we realize that the cost for that internet service is $7,000, then you have to decide whether you're going to pay $1,000 for a service that you could get somewhere cheaper. Does that make sense? Okay? And so if you only agree to pay the $10 because I'm providing that internet service, I would be left to pay the $6,600 or whatever, however it works out. So, so we understand both sides, that it's hard to say you want to pay, you have to pay more than market value, but at the same time, in order to maintain the service, which is very costly, we needed to just make sure that everybody was paying equitably. When a single formula is used, no matter what variables are chosen, the cost of the service is too high to result in a price that is competitive with other options. And the town knew that from the beginning. The town of Yarmouth respects any municipality's right to not overpay for a service, and that includes the right of town taxpayers not to overpay. Over the course of the past few months, since the town first indicated that we were looking at discontinuing our dispatch service, we've heard from volunteer firefighters and their families from across the region. They've asked us to reconsider this decision and think about the vital service the dispatch service plays in protecting our communities and the firefighters themselves. And I will say this on behalf of council, any one of you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we all understand the vital importance of the service, and we appreciate the service that's being provided. Since what we wanted to do was go to the municipal units, because it was really to make it simpler so that it kind of lifts the burden from the volunteer firefighters, the 24 units, but that didn't work, and that's okay. Our contract is with the 24 volunteer departments. So to this end, the town of Yarmouth will be communicating directly with the volunteer fire departments with a proposal to continue to receive dispatch service. So, and CAO, you can add to this if you want, but we sent a letter this afternoon after lunch. We sent a letter out to all of the volunteer fire departments within the jurisdiction that the town services dispatch to, and basically explained where we were, what had happened so far, and that we did have what we felt was a really great option, which was basically that adding a penny, it was a penny or less, I think, to their fire rates, that this service could be paid for without the extra burden of them having to fundraise and all those pieces. So basically what that looks like is if you have a home that is worth $100,000, you would pay an extra $10 a year. And I can only speak for me, but the number of phone calls I had from people saying we're willing to pay a little bit more to keep the service. So we thought that this would be the easiest way to do it, but understanding that there are 24 departments, and in order to maintain the numbers that we gave them for the first 6 months billing, that they would, most of them would have to agree, all of them would have to agree to maintain those numbers. So if one or two drop off, of course, it's averaged in for the others to pick up that, so it might be a little bit more or a little bit less. So that's where we are. I'm going to say this. I'm pretty excited about this one. I'm hoping, that everybody sees the value in that extra $10 or $15, whatever it is, to maintain this service. We know we can go out there and get it for a lot lesser cost. I've spoken with other municipalities who are I spoke with someone today that was with Valley that said they get absolutely spot-on service. They're thrilled with it. And so if we can maintain it this way, then we'll see what happens. So that's where we are.
And Your Worship, we had a discussion with the volunteer fire department the other night. They had some questions not only about dispatch, but some other concerns that they had, which was, I thought, probably one of the best and frankest discussions we've had. And we're going to continue that, I guess, on an ongoing basis. And I think everybody left the room fairly positive. If you want to maybe just add one or two comments, I don't think I'm too far off the mark on that.
No, you're not far off the mark at all. We did meet with our volunteers, and I'm going to say this: it was over 2 hours, and just an amazing, positive group. And they asked all the questions they wanted to ask. We answered, and we realized that we don't meet with them. And I'll say this: it's not that we don't want to, but they're doing a great job. And I guess you kind of pull meetings together when there's a concern. And but we did commit to meeting with them, twice a year, just to sit down and chat, see where we are with things. We've got the fire hall on the go and at the upstairs and all those pieces. So we want to make sure, that we're doing everything we can, especially to grow the volunteer fire department, because it's pretty neat to belong to that. And I say it again, an amazing group of volunteers. They were professional. It was and very well spoken. And I have to say, a couple times they'd say, no disrespect, or I have to say this, and that's what we're looking for. We just, if you can sit down in a respectful manner and just say, this is how I feel, straight from the heart, then it matters. We need to hear those things. So it was excellent. Go ahead, Councillor Hood.
Try to be careful and not upset any of the good work that you're doing.
Yeah, don't they?
But I was chair of the fire committee when we took dramatic changes here in Yarmouth and first moved to a full-time fire department. We initially started with 2 or 4 members. Bruce Trask, Cliff Hipson, Bruce and Jingles,
Wow.
who also served as building inspector, Jingles, Paul Cleveland. Yep. And we went with 4. At that time, we were the only town in this province that provided paid firemen. We had still a volunteer chief, Dave LeBlanc, and that went on for a number of years. And then we were convinced, at the urging of senior members of the fire department, Roger King, bless his departed soul, John Wainwright, Dave LeBlanc, bless his departed soul, leaders they were of the volunteer department, to move on to the full shift of 8 firefighters to ensure that we had 2 men on staff 24/7. Again, we were the only town west of Halifax with a paid fire department.
We are now.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
We continue to be that. Eventually, we switched over to the RCMP, and we needed dispatchers for the RCMP and fire, and we created the position of dispatcher of the town of Yarmouth. That went on for a number of years until the RCMP, to whom we had committed our policing obligations to, provincially decided that they wanted to centralize the dispatch services for RCMP in the province. They did not want it fractured out amongst all little entities. So we fought a battle, unsuccessfully as it turned out, to try to centralize that dispatch service here in Yarmouth. And the reason we fought the battle was to preserve the jobs of the individuals filling the positions of dispatcher here. Because we felt that if we were facing the same dilemma we're facing now. So Chief Kelly, I jumped ahead, we did go to a full-time chief in the meantime. Chief Kelly said that he thought that he could, if council chose to do so, that he could raise enough funds from local fire departments and local adjoining municipalities to cover about half of what it cost. And eventually we went down that road, made a political decision to keep the dispatch service going and to pay a disproportionate share of the true cost. In the meantime, as time went on, the province brought in civic numbering. Everyone forgets that. I've heard enough about Tin Pot Road. It's the first right after the hospital, for God's sake. And by the way, we have dispatch for the town of Shelburne, which is 100 kilometers from Yarmouth. Do the people in Shelburne bitch about Squats Lane or this and that in Shelburne and no one knowing about it? Come on. We're in a union dispute here, and here's the root of the problem. Bridgewater is a thriving town, a bit bigger than Yarmouth, quite a bit bigger. Bridgewater has no paid fire staff. Bridgewater has a fire budget of $1.3 million. Bridgewater pays $9,100 for dispatch services, and they are in projecting their budget. Next year will be paying $9,500 for dispatch services. Our budget is $2.4 million, the largest budget item, line item, including police, in this town. A $240,000 dispatch service that receives fewer than one call a day is not something we can carry alone or should. It's as simple as that. I hate to put it this starkly. Am I concerned about jobs in the community? Yeah, but where were we when we lost tin mines, we lost airport jobs, boat jobs, a dozen people at the airport that used to, the radio station, all that stuff's gone. We're not the job maker of last resort here. We're the lowest level of government. We're the taxpayers here, you know, property tax. That's all we have to pay the bills. And I'm trying to put these things out there to try, so that the public can better understand the struggle we're having as a council. And the heat that the mayor's taken has just been brutal and ridiculous on this topic. I'll take it, or my share. Look, we have to move on to, here's the number one thing that the public should know. There's going to be a dispatch service here. The question is, who's going to provide it and at what cost? And if you can get it done for $10,000 instead of $240, going up with this contract that's coming up, you got to do it. You just have to do it, providing you can get well, they're there. They're out there all over the province. Key thing is, why hasn't the union been proactive and started the charge to fulfill what the Maritime Fire Chiefs voted for, which is to establish a central dispatch for fire services for the entire province and have it located here in Yarmouth and save their members' jobs? Instead of beating us up unfairly in what is something that should be negotiated within the union contract, instead of walking out of the negotiations. So,
Thank you, Councillor Hood. And so, to your point, what I just read basically said the service can continue, but the town cannot continue to pay the disproportionate cost. It's not fair. We have 6,500 people in town. We can't keep paying. Okay. So, water utility? Deputy, were you going to?
Maybe Councillor Chair of the Water Utility will give a little update on the meeting we had with the Watershed Advisory Committee, and our engineer was also present at the meeting.
Worship, there's been a gap in the time for the meetings, the meetings of the Lake George Watershed Advisory Committee after the former chairman passed away, and then issues developed that everyone pretty much knows about out there that sort of poisoned the environment for us to be conducting public meetings in relation to the watershed, because we had to deal with those issues. They've been dealt with, and recently we met with Department of Environment. There is a designated person who supervises the various designated water areas throughout the province, Dawn O'Neill. She's worked with us before. I'm happy to say that all of the former members of the committee have agreed to reserve, and we met. We've proposed some amendments which will have to be considered by the water utility. You'll be getting a notice for a meeting Wednesday, August the 27th at 3 p.m., just ahead of your committee of the whole meeting. Donnie, that should work for you this time of year, I would think. And we will be considering some relatively minor amendments. I think Deputy Mayor Mooney was present. He is the vice chair of the utility. A very good and positive meeting, frankly, and we're back on the rails.
Awesome.
And that is my report for now. We'll update you when we meet with the full utility on the 23rd? 27th. All right, whatever it is. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, the deputy always calls after meetings to update me, and he said how positive it was. It was a great, great meeting. Actually, I'm going to tell you this. I don't want to embarrass you, Councillor Hood, but he said on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 12. You did say that. Yeah, so good. We needed to get that back up and running. Okay, so crosswalk. Councillor Cleveland?
Yes.
That was you.
Yes,
Go
thank
ahead.
you, Your Worship. This is just something that came to my attention yesterday, as a matter of fact. I've been spending a lot of time with constituents lately, mostly about the garbage issue, the garbage in the front, and that's what this particular meeting was, but it just happened to be with a person who is connected with the Sea Cadets. And the situation is, and I understand that there is a crosswalk a little bit further
Connected
up.
with what? The person was connected?
Sea Cadets.
Oh, Sea Cadets, okay. I hear you.
The cadets. So we're talking about the armories. I'm aware of the fact that, you know, with the Maud Lewis Trail, there is a crosswalk a little further up there. But what was mentioned at the time, and I said, well, it never hurts to bring up that kind of a subject, and it would have to end up going to the traffic authority. But what he said is when cadets gather, usually, of course, it's dark, on Parade Street there's a lot of fast motion. The cars tend to zip a bit through there. And they tend to park, the parents tend to park on the other side of the road. They park where the old Savies used to be, and then they cross the road. And at times that could be quite dangerous. And so they were wondering if it would be possible to at least have a crosswalk there from one end to the other. Now, whether that's possible or not, I don't know, but it was worth bringing up.
Yep. So, do you want to make a motion to refer that to the traffic authority? I can't imagine yeah, okay. Go ahead, I'm not going to say it.
So, okay, I'll make that motion, that we refer this to the traffic authority to take a look at the possibility of having a crosswalk from the area where parking is done on Save Easy across the road to the armories.
Okay. Moved and seconded. I always think add a crosswalk where no one expects it, and it's more dangerous than not having one, right? Because people step out in the road. But I'm not the traffic authority. So, okay. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. You're most welcome. Additions, approval of invoices, please. So moved. Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. So our next meeting date, September 13th, and we have a couple of in-camera.
Motion to go on camera.
Thank you, Deputy. All right. Thanks, folks.